Hey guys, welcome back to the Derick Leg Podcast. We're in the vault today with Warrior. He owns a business in town. We're going to kind of go over it a little bit. The martial arts stuff I'm actually interested in. I'm just too big of a sissy to try and do it. So this is Marcus Corvino.
How you doing?
Said it right.
Yep.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Hey man, thanks for coming. I was a little late, so I hope I didn't waste too much of your time, but we're going to just jump right in and just get going.
Great. That's what I like to do.
So from Pittsburgh, moved here a couple years ago.
Yep.
With your girlfriend?
Well, we moved separately.
Okay.
So my girlfriend was a traveling physician assistant. She gets mad when people say physicians because it's no S. So when it's physician people, you will gain lots of points with your physician assistant if you say that correctly.
It's not plural.
It's not plural. Not apostrophe S either. That's even worse.
That's funny.
So she was doing contract work and then landed a permanent job here in St. George. We'll leave the employer out of it. But really good at her job. So she got a really good offer. And I wasn't working at the time. I had just recently gotten laid off. And then COVID happened. So that was looking dim on the regaining employment quickly. So
Sure.
We had been dating for... I want to say almost 4 years at that time, but we had never lived together. She was always away. Like we only were in the same like area code or even time zone, I should say, for about 9 months.
Oh, geez.
So, yeah, we took the opportunity and I just moved across the country kind of on a whim. I surprised her and showed up on her birthday. She was expecting me like a month later.
Oh, cool.
So that was kind of cool. So it was just me and my cat driving across the country.
Nice.
Which was fun.
Cool. And then you guys landed St. George.
Yep.
And then we talked just briefly before we started, but didn't want to work for someone. I know the feeling.
Yeah. So my career path had brought me into oil and gas exploration in the Northeast.
Okay.
I did that for about 10 years. I really like the industry, but it's too cyclical. This train of thought on the business mentality, it's tough. It's like a good old boys club. Great people, but it's really hard to change their thinking into some modern thought as far as business concepts go.
Sure.
So they kind of shoot themselves in the foot sometimes. And it's like, there's money, so we're going to get it all. We're going to get it all. Instead of just like, well, how about we try to strategize this so we have a 20-year plan instead of a 6-month plan?
Yeah.
Maybe we don't go out of business in the next year and a half. But that's really hard to change. And then I got out of that, needed a change, so I did autonomous driving technology, so the cars that drive themselves. Funny enough, Pittsburgh is like a major hub for that.
Really?
Yeah, Carnegie Mellon University is one of the biggest tech colleges in the world. Some like super geniuses go there. Some of the smartest people I've ever met in my entire life I worked with in that industry, and they all came out of CMU. So I did that for about 3 years. I was actually like a tester for a while for a major company that everybody uses for ride sharing. We'll leave the names out of it. And then I worked for another company working operations. That was a bigger automotive industry side of things where they like build components and stuff like that. So they had an autonomous driving division. That was actually really cool because it was a good insight on seeing what the tech sector looks like, especially in cutting edge technology.
Sure.
It's a lot of work. You need to mind your P's and Q's depending on who you're around. It is not an area where people like to be challenged on their thought process. And I'm a disruptive thinker, so I will challenge everything.
It seems like people that work for themselves tend to be that way.
Yeah.
I tell everyone I'm not a good employee. That's what I always say.
Right. I'm probably one of the most important people you need on your team. Just because I'm like, well, why are we doing it this way?
Right.
Well, we've always done it. So is there a better way to do it? Because I can think of 3 different ways that I could do that easier.
Right.
That I don't have to spend 12 hours doing it just because the culture is you work for 12 hours.
Yep.
So, yeah, when you're a disruptive thinker, that gets difficult, especially when you don't have a PhD from MIT or CMU in software engineering.
Yeah.
So that becomes a challenge. And they're just like, well, who's this guy? And I'm like, I'm the guy that's saying your technology doesn't work because guess what? It doesn't work.
Yeah. You're like, I'm not even saying that. Well, and I'm always like, I'm not even saying I'm right. I'm just saying, is there a different angle we should be looking at this?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And I always reserve the right to be wrong.
Sure.
Because I'm wrong a lot.
So yeah, I wouldn't tell my wife that, but I
Right?
could be wrong too.
Yeah. So when I exited there, I knew I was leaving eventually. And I was just like, I don't really care what the timeline is. I'm going to be out of here anyway. Cause I knew I was going to move in with my girlfriend. We just didn't know where that was going to be.
Yeah.
And COVID kind of forced our hand on that, which, you know, you don't, it's scary at first cause you're like, oh, I don't really know what's going on. I don't know where I'm going to be. We ended up in St. George and I started looking at the economics here, being a business guy. Cause I'm like, well, I have all this career experience. What do I do?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, you can work at a restaurant or you can work construction. And there's nothing wrong with working in those. Like if you work in those, I'm not trying to be offensive, but I'm just like, well, I'm not working in a restaurant. I don't know how to do construction. I'm not opposed to it at all, but I'm like, literally, I'm going to be pushing a wheelbarrow around.
Yeah.
And that didn't sit well with me at all. And I was, looking at distribution centers at the big companies because I think there's a Walmart distribution center here and some other ones. And, who knows how you actually get jobs at those places at a decent level,
right?
Even if it's possible.
Yeah, a lot of times it's like a temp thing and then you end up working your way up type of thing.
Right. And I was just like, I'm not looking for a handout, but you should take a look at what I've done with my career and like put me in something where I'm actually going to have some positive change.
Sure.
And, those companies really aren't built for change. They're built for keeping the machine going.
Yeah, they're cogs in the wheel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I got tired of that. I was just so burned out from that type of stuff. So I just started looking at like, well, maybe I just buy a business. I was looking at that. Didn't have anything that looked interesting or that was actually reasonable. There was a couple things that I'm like, oh, that could be cool, but they wanted a lot of money. And I was just like, I don't feel like you would even make that much money in that business. So
St. George is weird that way.
Yeah.
It's like we overvalue our own things, but at the same time, if we're going after someone else's, we undervalue it.
Right.
And the same person can do that.
Yeah. So it was just like, that doesn't seem right. So, I've been training in martial arts since I was 21 years old.
Okay.
I started with Muay Thai kickboxing in Germany because I studied abroad in college, and I just jumped into a kickboxing school, and it was Muay Thai. So I wasn't pursuing that specific thing. I just happened to walk in. Thought it was awesome. So I started training that after college. Then I got into what's called Hung Gar Kung Fu, which is a Chinese style, tiger and crane animal style, and some Salat, and it came with a lot of martial blade craft, so basically knife fighting.
Okay.
And the guy that was teaching it was exceptional. And I mean, like, teaches people that we pay to go do those things, that skill set. And it was just so high level that I couldn't leave for almost 14 years. It was about 14 years.
Wow.
And I mean, I passed on career opportunities to train under this guy because it was that good.
Yeah.
And it was so passionate. Like everybody's got their stuff that they're working out in their head. I didn't know who I was. I wasn't confident in who I was. I'm insanely sarcastic, and that's a complete defense mechanism, and I know that. But it's just who I am. It's how I deal with stress. It's how I deal with, I don't know what's going on, so I'm going to make an inappropriate joke right now just to see how people react, because I need to know who's around me when I'm in a situation that I'm uncomfortable with.
I've been the same way a lot of my life. Crack a joke, get people laughing, makes you feel a little better.
Exactly. It lightens the pressure, gets people thinking, comfortable, they're not defensive. You realize who's going to stab you in the back immediately, because if they're not laughing, you're like, oh, yeah, watch out for that guy. So
I relate to that.
Right. So, I was doing that, and I was progressing, consistently. And I went to grad school, and still trained, and went through long paths where I didn't have a job, like a couple years, actually. Like I could not find a job. Like people would not hire me based on anything. It was like, above my skill set, they wouldn't hire me. Right at my skill set, they wouldn't hire me because, being out of work for X amount of time actually counts against you. And I'm just like, I'm looking for a job. You should probably hire me because I'll probably take less than what you're willing to pay. And then the just getting by jobs like bartender, laborer, whatever, they're just like, well, you're just going to leave when you get a job. And I'm just like, I can't win here. What the heck's happening?
You're overqualified
right,
for that.
exactly. Yeah. So, you know, all that stuff that faces life, you know, all my martial arts got me through that. And, you know, I was so passionate about it. And it actually helped me beat cancer. So I'm a cancer survivor. I call myself one of the luckiest unlucky people in the world. So I developed at 35 years old appendix cancer. So appendix cancer, at the time I got diagnosed, and I think the odds are actually lower now to get it. So it makes it even more rare now. It was 1.8 cases per 100,000 people.
Holy cow.
In the United States. So it's like 2,000 cases a year. And 90% of those people are older than 55.
Yeah.
So not only was I way out of the age bracket, like I'm talking like 6 standard deviations from the mean away from it.
Yeah.
It also is more predominant in females. So I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And I think now it dropped to like 1 case per 100,000. So it's even like half as likely now. Right. So that was an interesting year of my life. So because that was just treated as appendicitis for 3 months. So they wouldn't do surgery. So they just let this tumor sit in my body in a ruptured state in my abdomen for 3 months before they did the surgery. Go in there and they're like, oh, this isn't what we thought it was.
Yeah.
So, you know, that was chemo, getting some intestines cut out of me, going through some more chemo, getting a bowel obstruction from the surgeries, losing 40 or 30 pounds from the bowel obstruction because I couldn't eat for a month, like zero food for a month. Don't recommend that for dieting, actually. And then, you know, all this time trying to maintain, I didn't miss work except for the surgery times.
Yeah.
I didn't miss for chemo. I literally went to work every single day because I didn't qualify for FMLA yet.
Oh,
I didn't work for the company long enough. You have to be there for a year for that to be in effect. And I couldn't afford not to get paid.
Right.
Because, you know,
that's common.
Yeah, right. So I had bills, plus I had medical bills.
Right.
So thousands of dollars for my, you know, what I had to come up with for my insurance. And, you know, the whole time, like, it got to the point where, like, I went from, before I got diagnosed with cancer, like, the best shape I'd ever been in my entire life. Like, literally, like, I've never been in such good shape. Like, I could crank out, like, 100 chest to ground push-ups in, like, a minute. Like, really, really fit.
Yeah.
Fat, and I was a cross-country runner in college, and I was beating my times in college for a 5K.
Yeah.
At 35. So I was, like, crazy fit. And then I got cancer, and it went from that type of fitness level to, I finished that, I could do 1 push-up.
Wow.
1. And it was the most excruciating push-up I've ever done in my life because I had, like, no core strength.
Right.
Because I got my stomach cut open, like, 3 times in a year.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm, like, working my way back from that, going to working full-time, basically fighting with these new people that, like, had acquired our company on trying to get them to run an operation, 1, safely, and 2, effectively, so the point that the technology works, all while doing this in my training, and then COVID hit. So I didn't have a job because they had laid me off, and I had just beaten cancer, and COVID hit, and I'm just like, oh, just one thing after another, guys.
Yeah.
Like, so, you know, I get here, and you know, COVID's its own thing, and we don't have enough time to talk about COVID because I have my own opinions about that. Because if I would have stayed in Pennsylvania, I'd be on the FBI's most wanted list. That whole January 6th thing would be nothing compared to what I would have done.
Yeah.
But I digress. So I come here and I'm looking I wanted to just train. I did not want to open my own business. I actually wanted to just work because I didn't want the responsibility. I didn't want the liability. I was actually scared. I was too scared to do it. And I was basically being a coward about it. Because
And you see that down the road, or
I see that now. I see that now. I didn't know that before. I thought I just didn't want the liability. I was just scared.
Yeah.
Because if I put it all on the line and I failed, it's something that, like, it's the only thing I've been really, really good at.
Ego hit, man.
Yeah.
Big
I don't know how
hit.
I would take that.
Yeah.
So, and, you know, I was looking for a place to train, and I reached out to just about every gym. And because I have a specific skill set, so I was looking for knife skills. Like, hey, do you have this? Do you train this? Whatever.
Yeah.
Even if I was like the best person that walked into the room, like I didn't care about that. I wanted people to train with because I could always bring people up.
Yeah.
Nobody really offers that in a real sense. And then my Muay Thai kickboxing, there's some MMA gyms and stuff like that locally. And there's a couple people that saw me working out at the local gym, hitting the bag, and they asked me to come to their gym just to try it out. So I was like, okay, maybe. I was like, I wasn't crazy interested in it, but okay. And I also didn't have a job. So like, I really couldn't afford to pay them anyway.
Yeah.
So
you're like, I got time.
Right. I got all the time, but I mean, this whole thing about paying dues for a membership, what? I don't even have that. So I walk in and it was just, a weird environment for me. I'm used to a very small school, very personal, stuff like that. And I get there's big gyms, there's small gyms, all in between. But when I walk in, I just felt like I was like bombarded with, oh, come train, blah, 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 like come train, like sign up for a membership. And I'm like, dude, I'm in like cargo pants and a button-down shirt. How am I supposed to train today?
Yeah.
Do you have Muay Thai shorts and gloves for me? Because I don't have them with me.
Yeah.
So I'm like, can I just watch? Like, I just want to see how you guys train because I know what I'm looking at. I've trained in Thailand. I've been there twice. I've trained with some world champions. I've trained with champions from Lumpini Stadium. Like, I know exactly what I'm looking for and the quality that I'm looking at as it's being taught. So I just needed like 15 minutes.
Yeah. I'm here to observe. I'm not
right,
here to.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, you don't need to convince me like I'm going to be one of your most advanced guys on day one just because of I've been training for 14 years.
You've got experience.
I've got the experience, right. So, I sit there, I meet the owner, and he was really nice at first. There were some red flags on the things that he said, which I thought was weird for an introduction. And I was like, okay, is it all right if I just sit here and watch? I just want to see what's going on and whatnot. And, he's like, yeah, if you have any questions, come get me. So, cool. So I sat there, and I start watching, like, how the gyms run, because, I want to learn. I want to be coached by somebody that's good. And I see the coaches teaching new people, and I didn't see their face leave their phone for an hour. I sat there for an hour.
Dang.
I didn't see their coach, their beginner level coach, leave their phone for an hour. I was watching people getting hit in the face with pads. I was watching people almost twisting their knees on their kicks. I was watching people not understanding what the combination was for an hour.
Yeah.
And I didn't see one coaching moment from that person that was running the beginner's class. And I was just like, okay, that's not cool at all. And then the gym was separated by beginners and advanced people, which was like a fight team, which I get. It's not how I run my gym, but I was like, okay, fine. You can run your gym however you want. Cool. So I started watching the coaching on that side, and the coaching was better. However, the fundamentals looked terrible to me. From what I know about fighting. And also, it wasn't Muay Thai, which was interesting because it wasn't like a true Muay Thai style. It was an adapted style based on their training style. But it was also adapted based on the guy's background. The guy's not a Muay Thai practitioner. He's another art practitioner that adopted a Muay Thai program that really isn't true Muay Thai. So, and that didn't sit well with me at all because I'm like, well, I'm here to train Muay Thai, not karate Thai, not Taekwondo Thai, not
your
whatever
adaptive skill Thai.
Right, exactly. And, just because you kick with your shin doesn't make it Muay Thai.
Got you.
I mean, that's not really a thing.
And at that point, you're like, light bulb.
I'm like, all right, I'm out of here. I'm out of here. And that's fine. And it's a super successful gym.
Yeah.
Which is fine. But I'm like, I can do better than that. And I'm just furious. I'm so mad because I'm just like, people are paying money for that. I felt bad for the beginners, actually, more than anybody, because I'm like, they're paying money for that. They don't realize how bad they're getting it from their coaches.
Don't know any different.
They don't know any different, right? So I come home, and my girlfriend's like, well, how was it? I'm like, I'm opening my own business, and I started slamming stuff. I was just furious. And she's like, oh, okay.
That's a big turnaround.
Right, exactly. So I was just like, if he can do that, I can do that.
Right.
So I was just like, well, let's build a better mousetrap. So, my girlfriend, she likes to travel. She's a backpacker, traveler, hiker, whatever, adventurer. I'm the same way, but she's way more into it than I am because I want to train. Like, I'm one of those gym rats where, like, when I get pulled out of my gym from training, I get really irritable real quick.
Okay.
Like, I could spend 10 hours in the gym hitting a bag.
Yeah. That's where you're comfortable.
Yeah.
And that's
what I love.
Makes
That's
sense.
absolutely my passion. And, you know, it comes down, like, I wanted to be a warrior since I was, like, this big. Like, I wanted to be a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle as a kid. And not just because it was like, oh, that's cool. No, like, I wanted to be like that type of elite fighter
not
type
because
of thing.
everyone wanted to, but
Right.
because you actually wanted the skills.
Yes, I actually wanted the skill set. And, you know, it's not that I'm like world class, but I'm what I would call high level versus an average person.
Sure.
As far as understanding. Now, my physical ability is what limits me. Like, so I'm blind in my left eye naturally. Didn't even have any accidents. It's what prevented me from getting into the military. I tried that. I tried military, CIA, FBI, Border Patrol, U.S. Marshals, DEA, all that stuff. And it all ended with my vision. So,
Really?
yeah, it was just, I couldn't get past the vision acuity. And that's important. I get why.
Sure.
But I just got all the skill set on my own. Learned how to shoot, learned how to fight, learned how to identify threats. I learned basically anything you need in a physical altercation to get out of there alive.
Yeah.
And I'm super happy I did it, and I hope I never have to use it.
Sure. It's better to have it and not need it, right?
Right, exactly. And it helps you just be like a good person because, you know, you learn more about yourself and how to treat people and self-control and how to go to mental combat with people. Because, you know, I've gotten myself out of situations just with my mouth more than I have with my hands. Like, I've talked my way out of every potentially dangerous situation I've been in. And I've been in some things that could have went really bad. Like, I've had guys get out of their vehicle in the middle of nowhere and approach our vehicle because he was upset that I passed him. And, you know, you look at road rage videos, they get violent,
Sure.
real
Fast.
quick, very quick. So, you know, I talked my way out of that one. And, you know, it's just one of those things. You learn how to de-escalate. You learn how to de-escalate, which is really what you learn. Because you're like, oh, I do not want to go hands-on right now. Because I know how bad it can get.
Yeah.
So, in the skill set I have, I felt like I could help St. George. Because that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to get to a point where I was helping my community again.
Yeah.
There wasn't any jobs except for one that I felt like I was bettering my community or our country. I worked for Chesapeake Energy for a while, and when their original CEO, Aubrey McClendon, was still alive, the corporate mission was to reduce the United States' dependency on foreign oil, so we would stop having to go to war.
Yeah.
And you know, you can think all you want about foreign oil, but yeah, energy independence is power.
Sure.
Flat out. And I loved working for that company for that mission alone. And ever since he, you know, got ousted as a CEO, and you can look up how it happened and whatnot if you even care. But I never worked for a company that actually had a good mission since then. And I was like, I'm not passionate about this stuff anymore. So I decided to open Warrior Meets Scholar. And it's, you know, located on Dixie Sunset Plaza here in St. George. I've been open since March this year. And I wanted to, have training partners because I'm selfish like that. I want to train with people. But two, I wanted to give St. George what martial arts gave me.
Sure.
And I was a whiny little pansy kid that walked into a martial arts school and happened to walk into the right martial arts school when I was 23 years old. I had a bad attitude about a lot of things. I was arrogant about a lot of things. I wasn't very humble. I didn't have a lot of humility. I was never purposely ignorant to people, but obliviously ignorant sometimes,
Sure.
which is worse.
Unaware.
Yeah, it's completely worse a lot of times. And the training that I got there and the philosophy that came with the training, like we literally got a whiteboard that was like a 2 foot by 3 foot whiteboard full of notes, like philosophy. This is how you live your life. this is a situation. This is what this means. This is, what are you doing with your life? Why is your life purposeful? Is it purposeful? Stuff like that. This is how you live like a warrior. And I took every single word to heart because it was the only positive impact I ever had in my life.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not tight with my family. I don't even talk to my family anymore. And I know that's probably a big faux pas in Utah.
Well,
but
I think it's more common than you think.
Yeah, I mean, but when you see like the Brady Bunch style families, like on the surface, I'm like, oh, that's a major red flag because that's not how that happens.
Sure.
I don't talk to my dad. Like literally, after I got diagnosed with cancer, like he blamed me for his debt, called me a loser because I didn't want to work in oil and gas anymore, and I was working for the most cutting edge technology in the world at the time. And then just criticized me for a bunch of BS. And I'm just like, I can't stand right now. And I just got diagnosed with cancer. You want to have this conversation right now?
Right. Kind of middle of something here.
Okay. So, that's why, I don't associate with my family anymore because it was so negative.
Yeah.
And the training that I got gave me the courage to walk away.
I'm all about that. People talk about cutting out friends or cutting out acquaintances. And I'm like, I'll go as far as cutting out family members.
Yeah.
If it's negative, if it's negative and you're not trying to push me forward or I'm trying to drag you forward, I'm out.
Right. Because long term, like that stuff is toxic.
Yeah.
I mean, negative energy it causes health issues. Like
Sure.
You can say it doesn't. And I was generally a healthy person. I never got sick. Hey, guess what? I got cancer.
Yeah.
And cancer doesn't run in my family. And there's no known, they don't really even know what causes appendix cancer. Luckily I had I don't know about in the world, but in the country, probably the top surgeon for that type of cancer. And I'm like, well, oh, cool. How many cases has he had? Thinking it's going to be thousands. He's like, yeah, I think he's at 90. And I'm like, what?
You're like, you can do 6 a day?
Yeah,
what
I'm
does
like,
that come to?
he's like, and this is in his career.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? I'm like, that's 3 a year.
Yeah.
Because he's in his 50s or whatever. So I'm like, Jesus. So, I'm not saying that, obviously my family life caused me to get cancer, but I bet it didn't help.
Yeah.
You get enough negative emotion in your body and it's going to cause some major problems.
I couldn't agree more.
Right. And, my girlfriend talks about this stuff all the time, and she's estranged from her family as well. She has a different upbringing than I do. Her mother passed away when she was a teenager.
Okay.
But her father was very, very verbally abusive, very, very verbally, mentally abusive. So what didn't sit well for her either. So she's really big on mental health, being positive with the people that are in your circle, stuff like that. And I'm the same way. We just have different approaches. So mine is you come to the gym and show me who you are. You don't have to say a word to me. I can see who you are by how you perform in the gym and how you treat other people and how you hold yourself when I put you through your stress situations, whether it be I put you through a ball busting Muay Thai workout, or I put you in a situation where we do stress inoculation or self-defense stuff. I know exactly who you are within seconds.
Yeah.
I know who you are.
Are you doing all ages?
I do all ages.
Okay.
Yeah, so I do kids starting at ages 6. So I group them in a Muay Thai class, 6 to 13. I did have them separated, but that didn't seem to work out for parents. So I just grouped them all together.
Okay.
I train the kids just like I train the adults. They learn how to kick. They learn how to knee. They learn how to throw all the punches. The only thing I don't teach kids are elbows because, one, I don't want them getting in a schoolyard fight, throwing an elbow, and then a parent's like, hey, your kid threw an elbow, and now my kid's got stitches. And I'm like, well, maybe you should learn how to keep his hands up. I don't know.
Maybe you should send your kid to class.
Right? Exactly. But yeah, I mean, they do bear crawls, they do push-ups. I run a very and it's an hour class. As soon as they walk in, they're warming up with their jumping rope. They're doing their basic striking. I have them do 3-minute rounds, just like the adults. Mm-hmm. I give them a little bit more of a rest, but because I don't want to overwork them because they're still kids, they're still growing.
Sure.
But they do body contact drills. We do fighting concepts. We do everything. And it's really cool watching some of these kids that don't like team sports, which I hated team sports because I was an outcast. I was a nerd as a kid. I had Coke bottle glasses. Wasn't athletic, was like pudgy, like skinny fat, because I wasn't, I wasn't athletic. I wasn't strong, but I didn't take anybody's shit either.
Right.
And so when you're that way and you can't really fight back, you're an easy target.
Sure.
And it's easy to gang up on somebody like that. But, so I'm teaching these kids confidence. I'm teaching them how to shake a hand. Like literally the first thing that they learn is they have to shake my hand and look me in the eye.
See, that's stuff that I think is important, that a lot of things are missing in a lot of popular sports and like the traditional sports, if you want to call them that. They're missing all of that.
Yeah.
And I've got a 1-year-old son, and I've always thought I kind of want to put him into some MMA. And I come from a heavy traditional sport family.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we were football, basketball, baseball, and I'm like, yeah, I would be fine if you wanted to do those things, and I'm not going to push him either way. But I think early on, I probably would sign him up for some type of MMA. I don't know much about all the differences, but
yeah, I mean,
for that,
it's all about the coaches. That's
Sure.
the most important part. One, you want them to be competent in what they're doing.
Yeah.
So they got to know what they're doing. But two, like, are they instilling good moral values?
Well, and I'm not putting him in there to learn how to kick someone's trash. I'm putting him in there for that. I wrote down mental toughness, mental stability.
Mm-hmm.
You were talking about respect, and history of the, I don't know, the fighting technique. Is that how you would?
Yeah. So you have your, there's the traditional side of things that you want to maintain tradition, but you also need to modernize it. So, traditional Muay Thai is way different than what modern Muay Thai looks like, depending on where you're fighting with. So if you're fighting Europe, they call it, what do they call it? I can't remember off the top of my head the different style, but it's a little bit of a different style because you're fighting more Western fighters. So it's like basically white guys, which are a lot bigger than Thais naturally. So they're bigger fighters. So they're going to fight a little bit differently. The traditional Thai style is still extremely good, and you don't want to mess with a Thai by far. They're still the top. Like if you look at the ranking structure, in just about every single weight class up until you get into the heavier weight classes, which I'm talking heavier is about 170.
Yeah.
The top 10 people are all Thais.
Because they're smaller people.
Well, they're smaller, but they're also the best at it.
Yeah.
I just mean
when you get up into the higher weights,
when you get up into the higher weights, it's because like 170-pound Thai is a really big Thai. So, but I mean, if you're looking at like where they dominate the weight class, like they're the top 10. That's just how it is.
Yeah.
So it's the tradition needs to be there because it wouldn't survive if it wasn't there.
Sure. But making that an importance to the kids also teaches them more than just learning the history.
Yeah, right. And then, there's a code that I give everybody. Every member that walks into my gym, as soon as you sign up, I give you a packet. You get the school rules, and then you get our code. So it's basically our moral values that we stand for. It's respect, humility, hard work, and being a good person. It's essentially what it is. If you don't live by those, you're going to be doing a lot of extra work until you learn how to be one of those people. I don't care how old you are. If you're an adult paying me, trust me, I'm going to hold you to that standard as well. I hold the kids to that standard. If you don't like it, there's 7 other gyms here that probably don't offer that standard.
Right. That's what I was just going to say. If it's not for you and you can't learn to adapt, then maybe you just need to find somewhere else.
Right. And there's a reason my school's named what it is. It's not St. George Martial Arts.
Yeah.
It's Warrior Meets Scholar. There's a reason for that. The whole name of the business is Warrior Meets Scholar Martialist Training.
Okay.
The reason I picked Warrior Meets Scholar is we don't see it anymore because we're a quote unquote modern culture. But as far as I can understand, a warrior is the highest moral person that you can be next to, I guess, a religious person, a true religious person. I use monks because I'm more Buddhist than anything else. But that whole selflessness and self-control and being completely mindful.
Yeah.
And the standing up for your fellow man, being of service to your fellow man.
Well, who wouldn't be for all that stuff? I mean, they may not show it in their everyday life, but...
Right. I mean, that's everything that a warrior is. Yes, they're capable of great violence.
Sure.
But only when they absolutely must use it. Everything else is, I'm a good person. I'm helping others. I'm mentoring others. I'm leading others. Things that our culture needs. Mm-hmm. I mean, everybody spends too much time on their phone, me included.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm guilty of
right.
that.
I'm on social media all the time. One, trying to figure out how to promote my business more,
Sure.
but two, like, what is, like, looking at, like, what is the culture? Where's it going? What direction is it going? So I can help be a better leader for the kids, be a better leader for the adults that walk in here, be a better leader for the parent that walks into my gym so that they can be a better parent to their kid.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Where meets scholar, you got to constantly learn.
Yeah.
You know, I have a graduate degree, I have an MBA. Does that mean anything? No, because honestly, when you're learning in any type of university setting, it's what is current information, and the second you learn it, it's already outdated.
Good point.
It is.
Yeah.
Every textbook that we used in my graduate program, we used at least an edition that was 3 years old. So that information was at minimum 3 years old when we were being taught it.
Right. You're already 3 years behind.
Right. Because it was just concepts. It was the concept that didn't change in 3 years. So, you know, and I had kids come in and I was just like, it's not important. It's not just important that you go to school. It's important that you learn how to learn. That's the most important thing you should learn from school. And I had one kid respond, and he's one of my first kids. He was actually my first kid that came in.
We got 2 minutes, just so you know.
Okay. And he's like, well, isn't that what the internet's for? And I was like, my head like exploded. I'm like, no. I'm like, the internet is a tool.
Sure.
You need to learn what is good information, what is bad information.
There is information. You got to know the difference.
And so you have the warrior and the scholar. They become the same person. You have that, you can do anything. And that's really what I want to instill in people in St. George. So, you know, I know we're basically at a hard stop here because I got to go teach a class, but that is the encapsulation of what Warrior Meets Scholar is.
Yeah. Well, I think we have a lot more to cover, so let's do this again if
Absolutely.
we can.
This is cool.
And so we'll bring you back on. I think it was cool to kind of give a rundown of not only of who you are, but what your business stands for. And actually, I had lunch at B-Dubs today, so I was like, cool. Oh, yeah, it's that place right there. So anybody's welcome. They can come in, they can observe, they can get, I mean, how does that work if someone wants to come in?
If you want to come in, you can check out my website, which is just warriormeetscholar.com. I have a bunch of different packages on there. It explains all of the programs that I offer. If you want to give me a call, or you can just stop in whenever I'm in there. I do the first week of training for free. Okay. Just to make sure you get a good feel and you like what I'm teaching you. Yeah. If it's not for you, it's not for you. I don't want to take your money if it's not for you. I want people that want to grow.
Sure.
So
awesome, man. Well, I really appreciate you coming. We'll reschedule and do another one.
All right.
So, sounds good. Thanks, Marcus. Thanks for being here.
All right. Appreciate it.
All right, guys. That's episode 26 for you. Thanks for spending the last about 40 minutes with us. We're going to have Marcus on again, and we're going to dive into a lot more of his background and what he has to offer. I think the most important thing that you said was just trying to better the community. And that's, I mean, I sell gun safes, but I'm like, I feel like I try to be more into it with the community too. Like we do free lunches all the time out in our parking lot. We offer things. We do the Toys for Tots stuff. Like I'm always trying to find things to better everything. And I really appreciate you doing that. So, all right, guys, we'll see you next week.